Hey guys, this is Star. What if? How are you all? Please support subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. This video includes a self-recorded minute introduction the first 30 seconds followed by AI generation for creative storytelling purposes. So in this video, we're gonna see second part. What if Harry Potter was adopted by an ancient magical family and became a legend? But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe this channel and share with your friends. Now let's start the video.
Here is short summary. Abandoned by the Dursleys, Harry is taken in by an ancient and powerful magical family, where his true potential awakens, and a new legend begins. But before we start, if you want more stuffs like this, then please support to subscribe this channel and share with your friends. Let's start the video. Harry, are you sure the Horcrux is here? Bill said uncomfortably. Yes, now are you going to help me break in or not? Definitely not. I'll lose my contract. Standing there in front of Gringotts, Harry and Bill were currently in the middle of an argument. Gringotts was a massive bank with marble columns, gold-plated teller boxes, and hundreds of goblin warriors. Harry and Bill knew they would have to deal with the Horcrux here, but unfortunately they were having a small disagreement on how to go about that. If we go and tell Ragnarok there's a Horcrux in his bank, he will want to destroy it himself. And if he doesn't, then the Horcrux is forever out of our reach forever unless we want Gringotts on our A.S. permanently. Harry, goblins have a standing order that they do not take care of wizards' Horcruxes. It's illegal to even put one in the bank. Fine, well, do it your way, but you're helping me break in if this doesn't work. Harry said, ending the conversation as they walk into Gringotts. Bill walked up to the teller and whispered something to him. The teller nodded and swept his hands for us to follow him. They took us to an ornate room. It was silver and gold everywhere with ivory marbling. Seriously going to run out of elephants and rhinos at some point with all this ivory everywhere? Were Harry's thoughts. The goblin teller told us to take a seat and that Ragnarok would be here soon. It was over an hour the Goblin King took to get to them. Harry was annoyed, even Bill was angry. This was a level of disrespect a Gringotts employee usually didn't have to face, especially with something so important to the Goblin Nation. Finally, the Goblin King arrived. Welcome, gentlemen. I heard you have some information that would be important to the Goblin Nation in Britain. The Goblin spoke. Harry decided he would let Bill do the talking. Lord knew he was too annoyed to do the talking anyways. We've found evidence of a Horcrux being hidden in Gringotts. It needs to be destroyed to prevent the resurrection of the Dark Lord. As a result of the Treaty of 1347, goblins are required to oversee the destruction of any Horcrux placed in their vaults. I know the damn codes, brat. The goblin sneered. What proof do you have the Horcrux is here? A soul map, created through a blood ritual with the captured soul of the Horcrux's maker. Harry said, cutting in. Give it here. The goblin sneered, snatching the map from Harry. He looked at it and then he put on a livid face. I know the vault. The object will be purified and put back into the vault, along with a penalty for hiding dark objects at Gringotts. The Goblin King said stiffly and then waved his hands. Two goblins appeared from outside the room. You may leave, the Horcrux will be destroyed post haste. The Goblin Kind said, and then the two goblins escorted us out of Gringotts. Harry was annoyed at the goblins' mistreatment, but as long as the Horcrux was destroyed he didn't care how it was done. He and Bill stayed outside Gringotts watching the map for 2 hours before the Horcrux finally disappeared. Another piece of Voldemort's soul was sent screaming to the great beyond. The next Horcrux was actually in a place Harry knew and was allowed to enter. Grimmauld Place. Harry ended up calling Sirius on his mirror phone and get entrance to Grimmauld Place. The only person that still lived there was a crazy old house elf creature. As Sirius' current heir, Harry had dominion over creature. So he and Bill stepped into the dark, dingy and dirty house. It smelled like mold and depression. There was no sense of grandeur or opulence like other old family manors, just the air of insanity. Creature. Harry called out with Bill standing right next to him with his wand drawn just in case. It wasn't needed. As a small, ugly little thing with large round eyes and bat-like wings. Common on house elves, but this house elf held a strong unhinged feeling about him. What does filthy half-blood heir and blood traitor master want? Creature said angrily. Ignoring Bill altogether. Creature, there is an object in this house that belongs to the Dark Lord. You are to bring it to Harry so he can destroy it. Sirius said flippantly, almost ignoring the house elf in kind. Unfortunately, Things never go as expected. Fortunately, sometimes they go better than expected. Creature the half-mad house elf started dancing around excitedly. I can finally complete Master Regulus' last wish. With a pop the house elf disappeared and then came back with a locket. It was the Horcrux for sure. Harry could feel it calling to the one in his scar. Creature has had this since Master Regulus had stolen it from the Dark Lord. Master Regulus' last order to Creature was to destroy it, but Creature couldn't. No matter what magic Creature tried, even wanded magic from the ancient wands would not work. Creature is a bad house elf. Creature, what do you mean? Regulus told you to destroy it? Sirius asked, almost completely pale. Creature went on to explain the death of Regulus to Sirius and Harry, and by extension Bill. Sirius had to hang up after Creature finished his story. Harry was mostly unaffected. Bill was the one that was the most affected, as he knew Regulus in his first year as the Slytherin 7th year prefect. From what he remembered, Regulus was a perfect Slytherin, cunning and a fanatical blood purist. To think he would give his life to stop the Dark Lord's madness was almost unthinkable. Creature presented the locket and Harry took it outside, swiftly casting Fiendfire and destroying Slytherin's locket. It was the end of summer. Hogwarts would start back up in a week, and all but 2 Horcruxes were destroyed. The Dunkles and Harry were on their way to the airport. To enter China, one must go through official channels. An interesting fact about the Chinese government is that despite it being against the decree of the ICW, there is no separation of magicals and muggles. It's the largest open secret in the world. No one from China would tell you, but they all know about the existence of magical. Except in China. They're called cultivators due to their unique magic system that requires meditation, pills, and special potions to reach the next step. Magicals in China and Korea go from first apprentice, second apprentice, third apprentice, level 1 wizard, level 2 wizard, level 3 wizard, level 4 wizard, level 5 wizard, level 6 wizard, level 7 wizard, level 8 wizard, level 9 wizard, and then true spirit wizard. To move through the different apprentice levels, you need to brew specific potions. At the third apprentice level, apprentices gain the ability to use rudimentary elemental magic without the need for spell models. After you become a level 1 wizard, through the final potion you must start to learn laws. Laws of magic are just different properties of Magic 1 masters, like soul for example. A second level wizard has such an understanding of the law of soul that they can manipulate the soul of both themselves and others as easily as breathing. To continue on to other levels, you must either reach higher understanding of the law you became a second level wizard on, or you must master a new law. This holds true until 5th level wizard, where you have to create your own law domain. The rest of the levels are determined by your understanding of your own personal law. The more you understand said law, the stronger you become in it. Until you become a true spirit wizard. To become a true spirit wizard is one of the hardest things to do, leading to only 5 of them ever appearing in history. To become a true spirit wizard, you must perform a self-created meditation technique and meditate on your soul. When meditating on your soul, your magic will begin to compress your soul, creating a truly immortal soul. Even if your body was destroyed, without soul-destroying magic you will never truly die. The only way for a true spirit wizard to die is to have their soul destroyed by another true spirit wizard. Fortunately, becoming a true spirit wizard means you leave the earthly plane and ascend. Only able to send projections of yourself back to the earthly plane with a small portion of your original power. Of course, you don't have to create your own law from scratch, you can copy other self-created laws. As long as said law was not a naturally occurring law, such as the fundamental elements, earth, fire, water, lightning, wind, darkness, light, soul, and body. Their way of using magic is a lot less versatile but more combat practical. Unknown to the Dunkles and Harry, Voldemort in his youth after Hogwarts sought training in cultivation. However, he was turned down as his magic had already adapted to Western magical usage, meaning it would be impossible for him to reach even first apprentice level within his lifetime. None of this to say that Western magic is weaker than Eastern magic. After all, should Dumbledore be faced with a level 9 mage, he could pull out a victory as a result of his more creative and versatile spells. After all, despite not understanding laws, Western wizards can still use them in their spells. All it is a different magic system, No different than the magical systems Harry has already learned. Harry was both excited and anxious about his trip to China. He had a division of Potter Inc. in China, but he had never been himself. He had to go through the airport. It's not his first time flying, but it is his first time going to such a dangerous nation. Chinese magicals are known for their ruthlessness, and their reliance of equivalent exchange. They don't use galleons, they use magic stones. Each magic stone is worth about 400 galleons alone, and the Immortal Soul sect in China required at least 10,000 magic stones to remove the Horcrux from Harry's head. That's 4 million galleons for something they could do as easily as breathing. As Harry walked through the airport, he had to check his luggage. The plane they were taking to China was for magicals only. The Muggles who were going to China were only allowed into certain portions of China that were specifically designed tourist traps, to ensure the secret of cultivators and other magical beings didn't get out. When Harry finally got to the plane, he saw a woman standing at the front of the plane with a smile filled with sharp teeth. She had long antlers, and her knees were backwards. She was the flight attendant. She gave a small breakdown of the situation in China, and sat down, and soon the plane was on its way. Arriving in the Chinese airport to Harry was amazing. There were so many different magical species, wizards with all sorts of different bloodlines mixed into their bodies, giving them strange but attractive appearances. There was even magic everywhere. Different merchandise being sold at alchemy stores in the terminal. Leia was even more wide-eyed than Harry. They both had just finished showing their visa, and they didn't need to be at the Immortal Soul sect until tomorrow evening, so now was a perfect time to shop for different curiosities and oddities. The first store they approached was an alchemy store. They sold flying swords, protection talismans, different pills that are supposed to have effects similar to potions. Harry grabbed a few to see if he could reverse engineer a way to make those pills with Western magic. Leia grabbed a mask and put it on her face. She was surprised when it let her change all her facial features. She pinched the nose and the mask came off, showing her original face. She bought it thinking it would be great for pranks. For over 1,000 magic stones there was a set of arm rings. Harry asked the clerk what they did in choppy Mandarin. Luckily the man understood Harry's question and placed the rings around his arms. Then with a punch forward, the first ring shot off and smashed a mannequin to pieces. Harry immediately bought them. He thought they were cool. Yes, I stole this from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. When they finally paid, it was a rather large amount. Harry knew a lot of this was just tourist junk and the real treasures were locked into the sects, but the pills and the 10 rings were really interesting to him. He wanted to understand Chinese alchemy. While he knew it worked on the same basic principles, otherwise the Chinese magicals couldn't use his magiphone, there were bound to be unique techniques that he could learn to incorporate into his alchemy. They stepped outside into the street. It was well paved and almost every vehicle on the road was a Thestral-drawn carriage. Harry could see Thestrals ever since he had killed the werewolf, but those who didn't witness and understand death would be shocked by the self-drawn carriages. They hailed a carriage and paid for the trip to the Immortal Soul sect. As they flew through the sky, they couldn't help but notice how brightly colored and brilliant the architecture was. It was definitely a beautiful nation. Even if Harry didn't personally like how intertwined the Muggles were with the Magicals. Harry was confused. The carriage said that they had arrived, but he could see nothing here but endless plains and beautiful lakes. It was certainly a sight to see, but where was the Immortal Soul sect he had come to see? Luckily he wasn't confused for too long, as a man appeared out of nowhere and spoke one sentence. The Immortal Soul sect is located in the Great Valley of Ort. In fluent Mandarin, suddenly a beautifully crafted compound appeared to Harry's senses, and he suddenly knew he was experiencing a Fidelius. He had seen the sect, he just couldn't comprehend it. His mind was literally working against him. Welcome, honored guests, we have received your payment and have set a room aside for you. You are welcome to eat with the master, or you can have food delivered to your room. The master will remove the soul fragment tomorrow. For now all you must do is rest. Meditate if you can, it will help prepare your soul for the process. The man spoke and then he started walking towards the compound. The Dunkles and Harry started following him. He led them through a well-crafted and cozy little compound where there were meditation rooms, training rooms, libraries, armories, apothecaries, and monasteries where they could contact the true spirit wizard of their sect. Harry was blown away by the rich culture he was seeing. He had a cerebral understanding of China, but seeing it for himself was an amazing experience. Still, when it came to versatility, he had to give it to the Western countries. Their magic was simply more useful for day-to-day life. The Dunkelds decided to eat in their quarters tonight as they didn't want to embarrass themselves by not understanding the local customs. In the end, they would meet the master tomorrow and hopefully leave the same day to get the kids back in time for Hogwarts' second year. Harry felt like he had just slept on the most comfortable bed he had ever slept on in his life. And that was strange because he slept on a cot, on the floor. Today was the day he would get the Horcrux removed from his head. He had felt a growing darkness coming from it ever since he found out about it. He didn't know if it was a placebo effect or not, but he knew he needed it out of his skull. He opened the door to his room to see a young man barely older than him. Yet he could feel his power. In magical power they were evenly matched. Which meant he was at least a level 5 wizard. Honored guest, I would like for you to come with me. We must prepare you for the ritual. Ritual. I thought it was direct soul combat. We must first sever the link between your soul and the fragment. It has parasitized into your very own soul. Without severing that link, the master could do severe damage to your soul. The boy explained in slow Mandarin. Okay, I will follow, Harry said in clunky Mandarin. The boy looked amused at that. I am Yang Jinjing, I will be your guide to the ritual chamber. The young boy said in plain English. Most of us know English, we just rarely use it. Nice to meet you, Yang, Harry said back as they walked to the ritual chamber. Harry could see burning wall sconces, a dark red ritual circle on the floor, definitely made of dragon blood. The ritual circle was so complex that Harry couldn't even understand it. Not that surprising since he hadn't studied ritual magic nearly as much as he wanted to. There was limited information on it in Western countries. Please take off your clothes and any magical objects you have on you. Yang spoke kindly. Harry felt a little uncomfortable but did so. He took off his robe as well as his wand and the rings that were resting around his arms. Soon his clothes were gathered into a pile on the floor. Please place a drop of your blood onto the ritual circle with this pin. Yang spoke, handing Harry a small needle. Harry pricked his finger until it welled up with blood and dripped into the circle, making it shine brightly. He was about to heal his finger when he felt a hand rest on his shoulder. Please do not use magic in the ritual chamber. You will offset the natural magical balance we have created with the ritual circle. Please just stand in the center of the circle. Harry stopped himself then nodded. Apparently this was one of the rituals where ambient magic was a deal breaker. He stood buck BPD in the center of the ritual circle, and soon 6 robed women came into the room. They were twirling staves. These staves were used as a focus to amplify their magic, not to facilitate it. Soon they jammed their staves into the 5 points of the pentagram and started channeling magic. The circle grew brighter and brighter. Now the last step is very important. You must turn your occlumency shields on and focus on feeling your own soul. The boy said rather loudly but still just as calmly. Harry did as he was told, turning on his occlumency shields, focusing on his own soul. It took a while but he finally felt it. But it felt off, something was holding onto it. He focused on feeling his own soul and ignoring the clinging presence of the other soul. Soon he felt the tendrils of the other soul slowly slip out of his own soul. It was as if he was breathing fresh air for the first time. The dark and disgusting feeling he felt came peeling out of him at light speed. He only felt himself, and for the first time he felt relief, like a burden he didn't know he was carrying had just been lifted. The ritual is complete. The 5 ladies spoke in unison, pulling up their staves. The glow of the circle turned dull. Then it lost its light altogether. The ritual is complete. Yang spoke in a calm tone, handing Harry his clothes, wand, and rings. Thank you. No need to thank me, you paid for this. Yang spoke calmly. They left the ritual circle and now they were heading to the master. He would destroy the Horcrux completely. Harry was led by Yang into a pagoda, where many young wizards were learning at the knee of the master. He had called them all to witness forced soul combat in person. Every wizard here studied the law of soul as their primary law until they either created their own law to complement their abilities or chose one of the many laws the sect had already created. Harry was led to the spot in front of the master. He was nervous but he knew he didn't have a reason to be. He had paid to get a master to exorcise the soul from his body, and that's what he got. He took a deep breath and prepared. Do not be worried, my young guest. This is a fairly simple procedure for me. The only reason I do not let my students practice on you is because of who this soul belongs to. I have crossed paths with Tom Riddle once before. I should have killed him where he stood, but I did not know the kind of monster he would become. The master said solemnly. Now just sit on your knees and relax your mind. This will be over swiftly. Harry did as he was told. He sat on his knees and tried his best to relax. He felt the master place his thumb and forefinger on his scar, and then everything went white. Harry could feel the forces of light and darkness battling it out inside his body, but the force of darkness was getting its ass kicked at every single turn. It tried multiple times to latch itself to Harry's soul again, but Harry's soul felt like I had a suit of armor on it. Before he knew it, it was over. It's over, Harry said. Yes, the soul has been destroyed. Unlike destroying the object and releasing the soul, I completely wiped this soul out. Tom Riddle will never know peace in the afterlife. Only suffering and pain of not being whole. Yikes, Harry thought. Another reason to never make a Horcrux. Soon Harry met up with his family and told them the good news. Leia was excited. Now there's just one more to go before we destroy the Dork Lord, she said excitedly. Harry thought she was more excited about the adventure they were going to go on. It was a day later and they were already back in Britain. The whole week estimate was apparently the old master underestimating himself. Harry didn't even need to heal thanks to the soul ritual he participated in. This gave Harry 4 days to stay in his lab and figure out how to turn potions into pill. After all, pills are a far better form to take than potions, which taste terrible and you have to drink the whole potion. He had so far figured out how to make the blood replenishing potion, and the Skelegro potion into pill form. He was carrying around quite a few of them. He even had a bit of time to write up the thesis and get it published in Potion magazine. It should come out 4 weeks into Hogwarts. Harry was excited. After he dealt with the last Horcrux, he would be free to focus on his projects. With no chance of the Dark Lord coming back to ruin everything. The pureblood supremacists will fall with their master. It was the day the Hogwarts Express came. Harry felt a little bad that he hadn't put in any real time at Potter Inc., but at least he set up a new pill-making division. They're solely focused on turning common potions into pills. After all, with a name like Potter Inc., it should have some focus in the potion market. Harry was excited. He was going to see his friends again. It was a new feeling to Harry to miss his friends, but thanks to that, the excitement of seeing them again was 10 times greater. He had spent all summer talking to them on the Magiphone, but it wasn't the same as hanging out in person. He didn't get to go to any of their houses because of the dumb Horcrux hunt. He's going to hold that against the Dark Lord when it's time to send him to hell. As they apparated to the train station, Harry started looking around. He was looking for a familiar face when finally he saw one. Harry was excited to see his bushy-headed best friend off in the distance. He said goodbye to his aunt and uncle and ran after her. He soon found that she was with his other friends, Ron, Daphne, Tracy, Neville, Susan, and Hannah. Hey guys, what's up? Harry said excitedly. We were just sitting around waiting for a boy who was half an hour late to our meet-up time. Hermione said coolly, holding back her smirk with a fake smug face. Come off it, I just got a soul removed from my skull. He said he had made sure to keep in contact with his friends on the Magiphone, but it just wasn't the same. I still don't understand that, Tracy said. Hannah nodded as well. Yeah, how do you even split your soul into that many pieces without losing your magic? Hannah spoke. I have no clue, and I am not even willing to try to find out. That's a mystery that should stay a mystery, Harry said, with Susan, Hermione, Neville, and Ron nodding. Oh, Neville, I think I've found a way to save your parents. It was before Harry had left China. He was eating dinner with the master when a question came to mind. Something he had been wondering ever since he felt his own soul. Master, do you think it's possible to use soul magic to fix someone who went insane from torture? No, not soul magic. You would need someone focused on mind magic, someone who has at least comprehended the law of the mind. It's a common law to focus on in these parts. You would need to contact the Unparalleled Mind sect, they would be able to do so. Why do you ask? My friend lost his parents to the Cruciatus curse. I thought maybe you would be able to help. Not me, but I am friends with a master of mind magic. I could give you his Magiphone number. Your friend can get into contact with him. So yeah, that's how it went. Here's the number, by the way, you can give it to your gran. The master should speak English just fine. Neville looked somewhere between crying and throwing up, but he focused on pulling up his occlumency shields, and calmed down. I'll have to talk to Gran about it. We don't have the money to drop 4 million a person. We're wealthy but we're not rich. And care for my parents had damaged the Longbottom coffers. If it's that big a problem, you can easily make money. What do you mean? Did you know there's currently over 20 billion tons of gold dissolved in the ocean? Just one little Accio and you could have enough gold for anything you wanted. Hey, why didn't you tell me that? Ron said, not really angry. 'Cause you get mad when people talk about money. Harry said, immediately reminding him that he was in fact that petty. When people talk about having money not making it. Ron said, trying not to laugh. Either way, keep it quiet, we do not need to devalue gold. Harry said, if they came out with over 200 tons of gold in a few years, it would devalue it and make it common. Devaluing the magical economy. Thanks, Harry. At least I know saving them is possible. Even if we have to take out a loan at Gringotts and pay it back a bit at a time, I'll get to see my parents again. Neville said, trying not to tear up. Soon the train blew its horn and it was time to get on. The group did what they usually do and went to one cabin and used the extension charm to make the space big enough for all of them. Seriously, this is why friend groups in Hogwarts are so small. There's not enough room to hang out together. Actually, I was thinking of talking to Dumbledore and getting a big room that we can all use as a single common room, that way we can encourage friendships throughout the houses. That sounds like a pretty good idea. Too bad Gryffindor and Slytherin would kill each other. Daphne said, picking out the biggest flaw in the plan. Or what she assumed was the flaw. Not if we enforce a no fighting rule. I can make it really tempting to be in that room with different games and enchanted equipment that would make it the favorite place to be in Hogwarts. It really wouldn't take that much. Hogwarts may be the best place to study, but it's one of the worst places to have fun. Still, we'd need a staff advisor to keep everything legal. Hermione said, already drawing up plans. Are we going to be continuing the dueling club? Neville asked. He was one of the best duelers amongst the group. When it came to kicking ass, Harry and Neville were on par with each other. Harry had only recently reclaimed his crown against Leia. Neville hasn't yet fought her, but Harry put it 50-50 Neville would win. One small difference is Neville loves dueling. Harry tolerates it, as being wise without being strong is a great way to get yourself killed by some backstabbing asshole. Yes, we're going to continue the dueling club, but I'm also thinking of finding some first years to teach wandless magic to. Harry replied. Soon Harry was lost in the inane conversation with his friends that he had come to enjoy. They weren't all mentally on par with him, but they were his friends. His first ones. It was nice to just listen to their problems and enjoy being young, where your biggest problems were your parents or your gran catching you trying to ride your broom without supervision. Which girl, guy you like? And come on, Ron, it's clear you're talking about Daphne. It's just nice to be young. When they arrived at Hogwarts with everyone taking turns to get dressed, the girls first, then the guys. They all got off the Hogwarts Express at Hogsmeade and got into the Thestral drawn carriage. Funnily enough, only Harry could see them, so he didn't ruin the magic for the rest. When they finally got to Hogwarts, they all entered into the Great Hall from the side so they wouldn't run into the firsties, and spill the Sorting Hat's secret. Harry took his place at the Ravenclaw table and said goodbye to his friends except for Hermione, who was also a Ravenclaw. So Hermione, are you looking forward to classes this year? Not really, I already know all the material and all the spell work. We're both already at least at 5th year level, you're probably postgraduate level. All I can think about is the time I'm wasting rather than learning new things. You finally understand what it's like to be me, Harry said jokingly. But seriously, he plans to finish Hermione's education this year, that way they can spend all their time in the library. Students that pass Hogwarts curriculum before their 7th year are not just sent out into the world to get jobs or do their masteries. They're giving an independent study plan where they gain access to the forbidden section. This is not common, but it's also not uncommon. Every couple of years, someone steamrolls their way through Hogwarts curriculum and they're too young to be sent out on their own. Hogwarts isn't about stifling talent, but they're also not reckless. Below the age of majority, you belong at Hogwarts. Harry could understand that. After all, they can't make an exception in the trace. The trace monitors all magical use around children younger than 17. The only way around it that Harry knew was using magic under wards, or in high magic areas. The law disproportionately affected Muggle-borns, but Harry had no intentions of fixing that. After all, Muggles shouldn't even know about magic, let alone see it in action. This is why he couldn't wait for Project Elysium to come to fruition. Elysium, one of his major projects, he had to ignore this summer thanks to Lord Runaway from Death. Elysium is what the new wizarding planet will be named. Harry had decided that he would start small when it came to traveling the stars. The first planet he intended to colonize was Venus. Why Venus? Because according to the now defunct Soviet Union, it had everything needed for life, just not in the right form. As such, massive terraforming rituals, alchemical arrays, computational bases, and good old-fashioned dirt work are all that is needed to terraform Venus into a perfect home for magicals. Harry shook his head. Food now, world conquest later. Harry, though, as he started eating at a relatively sedate pace, listening to Hermione telling him about her summer. Her parents decided to go to France, so they took her with them, though she complained a bit that she didn't get to visit the magical parts of France. Harry thought to himself he would probably take his best friend with him when he graduated and went to tour all the other countries' magical worlds. Harry entertained her with his stories of what he found and learned about magical China. He even showed her what the rings, that were now a constant fixture on his arms, did. Hermione was wide-eyed as she learned about all the new and unique ways the Chinese magicals make use of magic. Their true spirit wizards sound quite a bit stronger than our archmagies, Hermione said. Harry could tell she was a little worried. 6 immortal people with the strength comparable to an archmage was a worrisome thought for most. Especially when they exist in such a warlike culture. It may appear that they are far stronger, and in the higher planes they are, but the power they can project on this realm is barely equivalent to an archmage. No one of them could just wake up one day and try to conquer the world, as their avatars are bound to earthly limits. In other realm, though, you're right, they are quite powerful. What do you mean by other realms? The theory Muggles have about infinite parallel universes is not entirely inaccurate. You see, throughout the No multiverse there are 4 different types of realms. There are the low realms. The strongest being in those realms would be the equivalent to a 4th-year Hogwarts student. There are the mid-realms, the magicals there would be lucky to reach the strength of a Hogwarts graduate. Then there are high realms like R, where we can reach the strength of Archmage, not easily but far more easily than those in lower realms. The last realms are the Ascendant Planes. This is the realm of the god-level magi. They are so powerful only the higher realms can contain their power. Should they try to manifest all their power on Earth, the laws that govern the universe would start to come undone. As such, the world's will come down on them, crushing even their true spirit, doing so much damage it's not worth it to try unless they truly intended to destroy our plane. As having 6 true spirit magi is actually a good thing in the end. Because they can protect our plane from the actions of other beings on the same level as them. Harry said, taking a minute to drink a glass of pumpkin juice. His throat was parched from his impromptu lecture. Do our magic system have an equivalent of a true spirit wizard? Hermione asked with worry on her face. Not as such, no. There may be a ritual to ascend to that level, but it would be such a magical drain it would kill any normal wizard attempting it. For all intents and purposes, Archmage is our top. Then again, our magic system wasn't made for combat or strength in the first place. Our magic system was created for convenience. There's technically nothing magic can't do in any system, but our system is a lot more fluid, giving us access to multiple different pathways to achieve our goals. In China and Korea's magical system, there's only one way to achieve whatever goal you set. Hermione nodded and looked relieved at that answer. Ah, she was worried I would try to ascend, was Harry thought. He had already given it a lot of thought. It was possible for him to reach that level, but he wouldn't. It wasn't worth it. Harry didn't want to live forever or until someone put him out of his misery. Sure, an extra long life to study and learn more about magic sounded fun, but he didn't like the sound of living long past the age of all his friends and family. It sounded more like the lonely torture he was forced to endure at the Dursleys than any sort of gift. Soon it was time for the students to get to their dorms. Harry and Hermione walked side by side, continuing their conversation. It was the next morning, and Harry and Hermione were heading down to the Great Hall to grab breakfast before the first classes of the year. Last night, after multiple quizzes, both paperwork and spell work, Harry had confirmed that Hermione was now at a 6th year level, contrary to her own belief that she was at a 5th year level. They both celebrated with a few sugar quills before popping some flossing string mints and going to bed. It won't be long before we can both take our owls and newts and focus on independent study. I can't wait to get access to the restricted section. All that knowledge, something has to be at least a little bit useful. Harry said excitedly. I know. I can't wait to get an actually read of Most Potent Potions. It's said to be one of the greatest potions works of all time, and yet I haven't been able to get a copy no matter who I ask. I have a copy. I've read the book over 13 times. Trust me, there's a reason they don't give it to Hogwarts students. Harry said. There were a ton of useful potions in there, but there were also a ton of poisons and methods to cast a blood curse through potions using someone's blood as a base. It was a rather horrific read if he said so himself. It can't be that bad. Hermione said a little defensively. She didn't quite understand that knowledge could ever be bad. It was pretty bad. But you'll find out yourself when you clear the electives for 7th year. Ugh, I can't believe I have to learn divination theory. It's useless. And Muggle studies are at least 200 years behind. Yeah, I know, I had to trudge through it as well. It's dumb. Well, not divination. Divination can be useful when you're trying to find something, but you're not even taught search divination at the classroom level. It's all just the prediction nonsense. Soon they arrived at the Great Hall and sat down, starting to eat. Professor Flitwick arrived and started handing out timetables. It looked the same as last year, so Harry just ignored it. After all, electives don't start until 3rd year. 2 weeks later. Harry was not a good person. After all, his plan, should it go the way he wanted, would kill over 58 British pure-blood magicals. So he could say without any doubt that he was a bad person, but there was one thing Harry hated more than bad people. He hated bullies. Call it trauma, call it ingrained behavior. It didn't matter. When it came down to it, Harry hated bullies. That's why he was so livid right now. No, not just livid, he was absolutely pissed. Why was Harry so pissed? Because, as he was walking on his way to the room of requirement, he encountered one first-year Ravenclaw, Miss Luna Lovegood, barefoot and looking for her things. Luna, where are your shoes? Oh, the Nargles took them. That's what I'm looking for. Luna said with a dreamy smile. The kind of innocent smile that is hiding true hurt. She didn't want to admit she was being bullied, so she made up an magical creature. Harry did a quick Legilmency scan to confirm his theory, and yep, she was being bullied by upper-year Ravenclaws. They even took a picture of her mother. That took Harry from pissed to downright nuclear. What do you say we get your things back from the Nargles? Harry said, placing his hand on Luna's shoulder and leading her to Professor Flitwick's office. Knocking on the door firmly, the stout professor opened the door and saw Harry's stormy expression. Mr. Potter, what can I help you with? Flitwick said, a little nervous at how angry Harry looked. Usually when Harry looked like this, someone was about to learn a very painful lesson. Nothing you can help me with, Professor, but you can help Miss Lovegood. She says Nargles have been stealing her things. I managed to find out that it was the upper-year Ravenclaws stealing and hiding her things. They even took a picture of her late mother. Whatever Harry expected, it wasn't the diminutive professor, turning beet red and baring his teeth. Luna, I want names. Ravenclaw has a strict no bullying policy put in by me personally. I want to know who they were and what they took. Luna looked like she was about to cry, so Harry placed his hand on her shoulder. It's okay, Luna, he's not mad at you. He just wants to make sure the bullies don't hurt anyone else with their actions. Harry gave the professor a look that said, calm the hell down and handle this like an adult. Flitwick caught the look and regained his composure. Sorry, Luna. Bullying is a big topic to me, as I faced it throughout my entire Hogwarts career as a result of being half goblin. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at them. You can trust me, I will handle this appropriately. Soon Luna broke down in tears and started telling the names of all the students who had been stealing her things, calling her loony, hitting her with stinging hexes, tripping jinxes and more that made Harry ready to declare a damn duel with all of them. By the end of it, Flitwick was so appalled by actions of those in his house he summoned a pair of shoes that would fit Luna, and told Harry to take her for a walk and not to come back to Ravenclaw Tower until curfew. The next day there were 200 negative points in Ravenclaw's hourglass for house points. The burning red of the negative points serving to infuriate the Ravenclaws even more. Not at Luna though. Most of the Ravenclaws that weren't bullying Luna were furious when they heard about the upper years picking on a little girl. They were even more furious that said bullies basically already caused them the house cup in the first 3 weeks of school. Needless to say, those bullies were currently getting the cold shoulder from all the other Ravenclaw students. While Luna was being treated as a collective little sister, Harry even invited her to the Wandless Dueling Club, stating he would teach her how to cast wandlessly, making the bullies even more jealous. But they were smart enough not to take it out on Luna because they saw the murderous look Harry had given them and wanted nothing to do with that. Even Hermione, who was a little put off by Luna's magi cryptozoology, was furious on Luna's behalf. Hermione hated bullies just as much as Harry did, and she thought that Ravenclaw was above bullying people for being different. Luna, as it turned out, was quite talented in wandless magic. She formed her magical circuits perfectly from the start. All she really needed was to do wandless magic exercises. Hermione was the one who led her through most of them, as she, like Harry, didn't enjoy dueling as much as the others. Hermione was still one of the best duelers in the club, right behind Neville, who was tied with Harry and Leia. Luna, as it turned out, was a magical savant, as in just 3 days, she had mastered the wandless magic exercises and started learning the first-year curriculum spells. That hit everyone in the group in the pride, but no one took it out on Luna. It's not her fault, she was just more in tune with magic. Luna had become the unofficial little sister of the group. Luna wasn't the only new member to the group, as Daphne had taught her little sister wandless magic at home already. She couldn't cast as long or as powerfully as the others due to her curse, but Astoria was a kind of sweet little girl and became quick friends with Luna. When I came to spell knowledge and theory, she was on a 2nd-year level. Which sounds incredible until you realize that no one in either group, Harry's or Leia's, were below 5th year in spell knowledge and theory. There was one more new addition, and Harry didn't really like this one, but he was part of Leia's recruitment initiative. Colin Creevey. The boy was a wannabe news reporter. He started up his own version of a Hogwarts newspaper where he would write articles. Unfortunately, most of the articles he wrote were about Harry, the boy who lived. He fit in with Luna and Astoria well enough, and he was kind enough, but Harry found him a bit creepy. Still, he was coming along rather swiftly with his magical training as well. His circuits were 84% correct, so he just had a little bit of refining to do before he can start the wandless exercises. It was late at night. Harry and Leia were out and about with Professor Dumbledore. They were looking for the last Horcrux. Professor Dumbledore was furious when he found out the last one was in the school, but he agreed to help them find and destroy it. Harry had considered that the curse of the Dada position might be tied to the last Horcrux and was questioning himself if this was the right year to get rid of the curse. After all, Lockhart was a useless idiot, and if they broke the curse, he might be the new permanent teacher for Dada. It was only after Professor Dumbledore said his contract was only for 1 year did Harry feel a bit better. Still, he wasn't entirely happy with the situation. Unfortunately, Harry was going to have to expose his greatest secret. His lab, or as it's known to Hogwarts, the Room of Requirement. Or to the elves, the Come and Go Room. Harry knew it was stashed in the Lost and Found when the soul map showed the west wing of Hogwarts. There was only one place to hide a Horcrux, and that was the Room of Requirement. So they stepped in front of the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy and concentrated. I need a place to hide something. X3. Soon the door appeared, and inside was a monstrous collection of nothing but junk. It will take us forever to locate this thing. No, necessarily, we just have to zoom in really close with the map. Harry said and started pinching the map and spreading his fingers out to zoom in on the map. Unfortunately, it said the Horcrux was right in front of him. Crap, never mind, this is a pocket dimension, it only shows the general location of the pocket dimension's entrance. And so began the great hunt for the Horcrux. 6 weeks later, after they had scrubbed through all of the lost and found, they had finally come across the Horcrux. Luckily, Harry was wearing his glasses that can see past notice me not charms, or he would have never found the Horcrux. They had looked through all of the junk and even started selling off quite a bit of the stuff that was still useful. It pulled in over 200 million galleons for the school just selling junk from the lost and found. The trash was obviously burned. Unluckily, he knew exactly what that Horcrux was, and Leia was pissed. The lost diadem of Ravenclaw, an object of immense power, and this moron uses it to house a piece of his soul. Leia yelled. It is a shame it must be destroyed. It would have been very useful for Hogwarts if it could be saved. Dumbledore said in a sad tone. Leia was furious. I think it's time we burn it, Professor. No, we cannot burn it. If we use fiendfire here, it will inevitably get out of control in such a magic-rich environment. Luckily, I had ordered some basilisk venom from a licensed breeder. We can destroy he magic with basilisk venom. Still, it's such a waste. It will be fine, Professor. I'll just have to remake it one day. Yes, I suppose you could do that, the professor said as they walked towards the professor's office. As they arrived at the stone gargoyles, they jumped out of the way without need for a password. The professor led the two students through his dingy office with thousands of alchemical machines all monitoring different things. Some were just useless baubles and bits. Fun things the professor created in his spare time. He stepped behind his desk, opening it up and pulling out an opaque vial that seemed to be glowing an eerie green. He placed the diadem of Ravenclaw on the table and slowly dripped the acidic substance onto the diadem. It started to smoke and bubble, then a wretched screaming poured out of the diadem with a black smoke of the newly released soul screaming on its way to hell. That was the last one, Harry said, a sense of finality coming over the group. The last thing to do was to send the Wraith to hell with his missing pieces, well, most of them. It was early in the morning. The tree members of the Dark Lord Destruction team didn't sleep at all last night. They were back in the third-floor corridor, the last room of what was once the trap room. Where it started is where it shall end. The room was entirely different, covered in runes and dragon blood. Multiple runic arrays shine brilliantly throughout the room. A room built for a simple purpose: to trap the soul of the Dark Lord once it's released from the soul crystal. Long enough for Harry to banish the soul from the material world. They had gone over the plan multiple times. Dumbledore would free the soul from the stone, Leia would power the containment array, and Harry would banish the soul. Apparently it had to be like this to finish out the prophecy that was foretold on Harry's birth. The reason the Dark Lord killed his parents, the reason his life had been so horrid for the first 8 years of his life, and the reason that despite the professor not knowing this, Harry was going to kill Snape. Still, that was for later. Harry had to get his mind in the game. You can't feel hate when casting this charm, or it won't work. You have to truly wish the target soul to leave this mortal coil for their own good. Harry had to pull up his mental shields and force himself into the right state of mind. Are you ready, Harry? I would like to start the process now. Dumbledore spoke in a kind tone. Yes, release the soul when ready, Harry said, almost monotone. Dumbledore nodded at Leia, who started powering the array. Then he shattered the soul crystal, freeing the Dark Lord. I'm free, the Dark Lord said, trying to fly out of the room but ran into the invisible walls of the array. It is over, Tom. Your Horcruxes are destroyed and you will be sent to rest now, Dumbledore said in a sad tone. Harry started reciting the spell. It was a long chant, but he had nothing but time. Soon his wand started to glow, and then, quick as a whip, the spell crashed into the Wraith's chest. No, no. This can't be the end. I won't let it. No. Such a loud scream was let out by the Wraith. The three living felt their ears pop, but none of them stopped their actions. Voldemort could feel his magic that was tethering his soul to the world slipping. No, he needed more time, he needed more magic. That was the only way he could win here, was to outlast them. He started drawing magic from the Dark Mark, greedily drinking the magic from all his followers, but he still felt his soul slipping. He started taking in more and more of their magic. More, I must take more. I cannot die here. My story, I cannot let it end here. One by one, all throughout Wizarding Britain, Death Eaters started to feel weak. Their magic was being drained and the Dark Mark had turned an ugly red. Lucius Malfoy was at his manor getting ready for his day while his house elf Dobby was punishing himself for wasting food by burning the porridge. Suddenly he started to feel weak. The felt a burning tearing up his arm. He looked to the dreaded symbol he had tied himself to in his youth. It was a burnt angry red. Thinking quickly he tried to cut off his arm. Better to be without an arm than have all his magic taken by the mark. With a quick defindo his arm came off. He tried to clot the bleeding, but he didn't have enough magic left to perform the charm. Worse yet, his magic was still being drained. His last thoughts were of who was going to watch over his family. Bellatrix Lestrange is currently in Azkaban. It was a cold, dreary place constantly surrounded by Dementors. She had gone mad long ago, but not even that had saved her from the deleterious effects of the wardens. Suddenly she felt a burning on her arm where the dark mark was. She was excited. The Dark Lord was calling to her. She was so excited she felt a little faint. Her magic, tiny and stale from years of disuse, started to drain away. She could feel it leaving her. And in her devotion she tried to send even more. Her life was worth far less than her master's after all. Severus Snape was currently in the middle of his morning ritual preparing for classes. He had just finished writing his resignation letter. Dumbledore had let him know there wasn't going to be another blood war, so there was no need for a spy. Snape was honestly lost. He didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, but he knew one thing. He hated teaching. He hated children. Especially Lily's child. He tried hard not to hate him. He even made it easy. He was intelligent and respectful, but every time Snape looked at those bright green eyes on that bastard's face he could help but think of different potions that would disfigure him. It was in the middle of his self-monologue that he noticed the dark mark lighting up a bright red. Snape wasn't like the other dunderheads that call themselves Death Eaters. He knew what this meant. The master was dying, and instead of going gracefully he was pulling on the life force and magic of his Avs. For that is what the dark mark is. It's an Egyptian South Avenue mark. Snape knew there was no way past this. No way to save himself. So, he headed to his cabinet, got out the good fire whiskey and prepared to meet Lily. All over the country hundreds of Death Eaters were experiencing similar reactions. All leading to one ultimate conclusion: the death of the Death Eaters. Unfortunately, neither Harry, Dumbledore, or Leia knew this. Harry and Leia wouldn't have stopped, but Dumbledore would have insisted on another way. Deep in the third corridor, Harry was barely holding on. He was burning through more magic than he should. He could feel Voldemort was right on the edge of being expelled from this world, but it felt like that last little bit was another kilometer after a 5K. Leia was also running out of energy. Just as they were about to be forced to give up, Harry felt the last little bit of Voldemort's soul lose its grip and go tumbling into the afterlife. Both Leia and Harry collapsed into a heap. "We did it, Professor. He is gone for good," Leia said, excited that she just helped destroy the Dark Lord. "Yes. Now all that is left are his supporters," Dumbledore said, reminding them there were still those out there who would champion Voldemort's ideals. "Why did it take so much energy just to banish one soul?" Harry asked, mostly to himself but out loud. "I do not know, Mr. Potter. Perhaps it is the strength of the soul that determines how much energy is needed. I will have to research this, but in the end there's no real point. He's gone now," Dumbledore said in a calm tone. "Now I believe you two need to head to the hospital wing. Your tasks were far more exhausting than mine was." Little did they know that their actions would ring around the British magical world for a long time to come. Narcissa had woken up late today, as she was drafting a letter to her son Draco late at night. He wasn't doing well in school. Sure, his grades were fine, but beyond Crabbe and Goyle he wasn't making any friends. It was expected of him to make friends to create political alliances later. Unfortunately, he did not inherit his father's wit and social ability. Say what you will about Lucius, he was a great leader of the dark faction. Draco seemed to not understand why no one wanted to align with him despite his father's high status. They knew it would be difficult for Draco to make friends, so they gave him a grace period for his first year. It's had now been 9 weeks into his second year and he still only has Crabbe and Goyle to call friends. Which is very disappointing considering they only follow him because Lucius pays their fathers to have their sons follow him. Unfortunately, Thanks to Black, they had to change Draco's original plan, which was to just set him up as the leader of the Black family and let the house's status work for him. The Malfoys may be rich, but their political status was a result of their wealth and political bribes, not the respect for the house itself. After all, they only raised to such political status as a result of the Blood War and her husband becoming part of the Dark Lord's inner circle. Narcissa shook her head, shaking herself free of such dark thoughts. If Draco turns out to be a failure, she can always try for another child and have them be the heir. She walked into the dining room. The first thing she noticed was the blood. Then she saw Lucius laying on the ground unconscious. She ran to him, taking note that his arm was currently not attached to his body. She looked for the arm and then she saw it, the dark mark burning red. She checked Lucius' pulse and found nothing. He was dead. She quickly put together what had happened. The dark mark changed and starting attacking Lucius somehow. He cut it off to try and save himself, but he didn't have enough magic to save himself. She knew she would have to tell Draco. She just hoped he would be able to take it. Word of the Death Eater's demise spread throughout the wizarding world. It was the headline in every newspaper in every country. Over 200 people had died as a result of the dark mark. Mostly in European countries, but there were others in the Americas that were also agents for Voldemort that had died. The question of why the dark mark chose to activate and drain the magic of the Death Eaters was the question everyone needed to know the answer to. It was an unspeakable name, Croaker, that came forward with the answer. He explained the intricacies of the Egyptian South Avenue mark, what it did, how it was made, and why it activated. People were shocked to hear Voldemort was somehow still clinging to life, and they were excited to hear about the permanent death of the Dark Lord. In the headmaster's office a week later, Harry and Leia were in the headmaster's office. People had been looking for the ones who killed the Dark Lord for a week. There were multiple investigative journalists showing up to try and sneak on campus multiple times. Harry and Leia knew that couldn't find out that they had the hand in it, otherwise all the families of the Death Eaters they killed would come after them. Harry wasn't worried about that, but he'd be damned if anyone went after his little sister. So he keep his mouth shut. Fun fact, this whole deal saved him over 2 billion galleons, as he was going to have everyone with a dark mark killed anyways. As they sat down and waited for Dumbledore to be seated in his chair, they looked at each other. Leia had been uncomfortable with how many people she had inadvertently killed. Harry tried to comfort her, but he wasn't best with emotions. So he had his aunt and uncle do it. She was starting to feel better, but it still affected her. Finally, Dumbledore took his seat. Well, my students, it's good to see you are both doing well. I think it's finally time we talk about what happened as a result of us banishing the Dark Lord. Dumbledore hadn't been able to get into contact with Harry and Leia as he was busy putting out fires in both the school and the Wizengamot. With over 20 lords dead, and multiple families gone extinct, there was chaos in the Wizengamot. The Dark faction was in chaos. A large portion of them have heirs still in Hogwarts, so they automatically lost their seats when both parents died. The light side had the overwhelming majority, and there had been threats made to ensure the light side didn't take advantage of the crippling of the Dark faction. Still, there was still infighting now that Lucius, the leader of the Dark faction, was dead. Every Dark family head still alive was vying for his position. No one respected Dowager Malfoy enough to let her lead. Daughter of Black or not. With the potions professor dead, Dumbledore had to interview multiple potions teachers. The school needed a potions master to brew the potions used in the infirmary. Potions class had to be halted since there was no potion master to teach them. Slytherin was without a head of house. The school was in chaos with the death of Snape. Thankfully, Professor Sinistra stepped in as the Slytherin head of house. So, the Slytherins weren't completely unhinged, and Horace Slughorn had agreed to take back his old position as potions professor. The world was in chaos as a result of the banishing of the Dark Lord, but it was also slowly healing from ancient wounds. I don't think there's much to talk about, Professor. People are dead, but there's not much we can do to help with that. And if you want us to go public with our information, you can forget it. I will not have my sister become a target. Harry said in a no-nonsense tone. He would watch his sister 24/7 because of the headmaster's need to take responsibility. No, I wouldn't have you come public. It would be much too dangerous as you are right now. No, I just wanted to get an understanding of how you both were feeling. As a result of our actions, a lot of people died. I want to make sure you're coping well with it. I will never feel any sympathy for Death Eaters. They would have died to my spells in a second blood war anyways. This just dealt with them more cleanly. Harry said, his tone hard and cold. Leia pinched him. Sorry, Headmaster, he get like this when he's emotionally overwhelmed. He shuts down all emotion and focuses purely on logic. OWW, you little. Harry said, rubbing his pinched arm. It's not that he's emotionally overwhelmed. He tells himself he truly planned to deal with all of them, but he will allow Leia to think it's just that. Better than letting her know how dark he could truly be. I understand it's hard to find sympathy for those who have once been your enemy, Harry, but I must recommend you see a mind healer. The damage done to you by the Dursleys and your lonely childhood is still there in your soul. Dumbledore says softly and kindly. He knows Harry isn't lying when he says he feels no sympathy. After all, Dumbledore felt no sympathy for those he slaughtered on his way to Grindelwald. They had chosen their side. But, for a child to already understand this, he can tell the damage to Harry's soul is still there, still festering. While he may be a child of the light, he's perfectly fine with emulating the dark to achieve his means. What those means are is anyone's guess but Harry's. I already go to a mind healer. The one I truly thinks needs to see one is Leia, but I don't know anyone we can trust to keep their trap shut. Harry said angrily. He trusted his mind healer enough, but she said she couldn't see two patients from the same family. Something against a mind healer's code. I've been having nightmares, all those people yelling at me that I helped kill them. It's hard to sleep now. Leia admitted, and Dumbledore nodded. Despite her talent in dueling, the girl was no warrior. She did not have the mentality, the ability to move on after taking a life. I know a mind healer. She works under unbreakable vows. She can help you. I will contact your parents with her number. And excuse you at the end of the day on Wednesday for the rest of the year to go see her. Minerva will take you. Dumbledore said kindly, resting his hand on her shoulder. It is not wrong to feel sympathy for those you have inadvertently wronged. But you must not lose yourself in the feeling. That was the end of their conversation. From then on, Leia went to see a mind healer 2 hours before curfew every Wednesday per week. 1 week later, Harry was in his lab. Leia and Professor Dumbledore swore to keep this place a secret so he could continue using it. In Dumbledore's own words, I think the magic of this room is that those who need it will always find it. If they don't find it themselves, then they don't need it. It would also break the magic of the room to just tell people about it. Harry had once again underestimated the headmaster. The man clearly understood him better than most. Still, that's not what is on his mind. Right now, Harry is currently looking over reports for different R divisions. First, the Blood Curse division has made great progress. They've now made a universal potion that will suppress the effects of blood curses. Harry signed up Astoria to be part of the medical trial for the potion. So far, the results have been spectacular. Next was the division in charge of the magical computer, and Harry was excited to find out that they have managed to make a major breakthrough. They've figured out how to create a magical BIOS, and the quantum processor is actually running the computer without failing around high-intensity magical radiation. The only problem now is to figure out a magical programming language, and the computer will be ready to be used. Then all that's left is the array to create the internet. Currently over 400 Muggleborns are working on the new programming language. The computer as a stand-alone device should be ready by this summer. The MagiNet, which is what Harry is calling the Magical Internet Project, will take a bit more time, but should be ready in at least a year or two. The terraforming division has made some astounding breakthroughs. They've already started to create the different arrays needed to terraform Venus into a livable planet. Unfortunately, it's not like a wizard could just go down to the surface of Venus without being burned and crushed. So, the whole problem is how using those arrays at a distance. That is currently the biggest problem in standing in the way of terraforming Venus. Harry's not worried about it though. It would be nice to be able to transfer magicals to another planet via Portkey, which is all that Venus offers in being the first wizarding colony, but it's not like he can't create FTL-capable lives ships to transfer them off-planet hundreds at a time. Or he could just develop a magical transportation method that can transport over the distance of light years. The Magi Vision TVs have been selling out all over the world. Wizards are currently in a battle over whether Muggle television shows, or the brand new Wizarding television shows are better. Harry personally believed they both s.ked. Muggles lacked magic for practical effects, but Wizards are currently just remaking old plays in television formats. Only a few truly revolutionary shows have been created by Wizards, like Harry's current favorite show, Wands and Hearts. Wands and Hearts is a period drama about a coven of witches learning to deal with the fact that the world has started to pass them by. It was a great show, in Harry's opinion, very relevant in today's magical Britain. Speaking of the Magi Vision, it now had commercials, and Potter Inc. was pulling in galleons by the carriage load in licensing fees. Broom companies, multiple stores from Diagon Alley, even international companies are advertising on the Magi Vision. The next part of the update was about the magic vehicles that Potter Inc. had created. They go on sale this summer. There were economy models, family models, and luxury models, all hitting different price points. And last but not least, the Wizarding spaceship project. It was complete. They finally figured out the radiation problem, and now the ship could go lightspeed without killing everyone on board. It had all the safety features, including oxygen recyclers, that Harry had required. In fact, the maiden voyage was also going to happen this summer, so Harry would be there to travel the stars for the first time in his life. Harry was excited, everything was coming together. Soon the Wizarding world would take its place amongst the stars. Christmas break. Harry and his friends were excited. They were returning home for Christmas break. With all the things going on, Harry had almost forgotten that Christmas break was a thing. He was in his lab most of the time. That or hanging out with Hermione. Speaking of hanging out with Hermione, she had finally reached 7th year level in theory and spell work. They were both planning to take their owls and newts for every subject offered, then get into an individual study path. Hermione was excited since she was technically graduating from Hogwarts. That would open up plenty of doors for her. Harry was excited because he wouldn't have to go to Dada anymore. Though he was a little annoyed he didn't get to take advantage of having a new potions teacher actually teach. The new potions professor is a woman by the name of Diane Faust. She's a half-blood with a potions mastery. During her first class, a lot of students thought she would be just like Snape. Fortunately, they were wrong. As she stated herself, she learned in spite of Snape, not because of him. She was actually a recent Hogwarts graduate that got her mastery working at St. Mungo's. As everyone prepared to get onto the train, Harry expanded the cabin in the front once again for all his friends. Leia was already home since school ended on a Wednesday. They just took her back home instead of back to Hogwarts to ride the train. They all took their seat and waited for the train to start moving again. So, Harry, any new world-changing inventions getting dropped by Potter Inc.? Daphne said. She was far more sarcastic and bubblier now that her sister was doing far better. No, not unless you count a spaceship that can visit other planets, Harry said with sarcasm to match hers. She rolled her eyes. That wasn't new. Harry had been bragging for weeks. I still don't like the idea of just abandoning Earth. I get the Muggles wouldn't give us many other options, but I still find it cowardly, said Ron. He was a lot better now that he was a Slytherin, but he still had that Gryffindor recklessness he was raised on. I don't like it either, but sooner or later someone's going to screw up and ruin the Statute of Secrecy, and we're going to need to escape. Hermione spoke. She knew the darkness that Muggles could bring upon someone just for being different. Let's change the subject. So, Neville, I heard you're going to China this Christmas. Yeah, it was difficult to find the money, but Gran actually tried the trick you mentioned. Summoning gold from the water. It came in as a sort of powder, so much so she almost didn't think it was real gold. But after melting it down and selling it to the goblins, we actually have more than enough to get my parents treated, Neville said excitedly. He was going to see his parents again. Harry was happy for him but couldn't stop the ache in his chest that his counterpart to that stupid prophecy was able to reunited with his parents, while he would have to either wait until death, or torture himself with the resurrection stone. I'm happy for you, Neville. I know what it's like to grow up without parents. I was just lucky enough to get adopted by my aunt and uncle, Harry said with a sort of distance he hadn't felt since high school. Neville could tell his friend was struggling, so he changed the topic again. So Harry, Hermione, I heard you guys plan to take your owl and newts. Yep, We're both going to go into an alternate learning path. Basically, we'll be gaining our masteries in certain subjects. I am going for potions, transfiguration, and charms. I am taking a mastery for every core subject, as well as arithmancy and runes. He's ridiculous. I've tried to talk him out of it, but then again, he is Harry, so it's not impossible. Hormone says, not wanting to have another iteration of her argument about him taking on too much. I still say you're underestimating yourself since we have 5 years. Most masteries take over 2 years for one. Hermione said, getting drawn into the argument yet again. For dullards maybe, Harry said cheekily. For the rest of the ride on the train, Harry and Hermione argued back and forth about whether or not Harry was trying to kill himself with parchment work. Christmas at the Dunkeld family home was a happy affair. China made gingerbread cookies, Alex used magical decorations to make the house nearly sparkle with festive cheer, and both Harry and Leia were both happy to take the time to spend with their families. The only problem the Dunkelds had with Christmas break was that it went way too fast. It felt like only yesterday they were on the train heading home, and now they have to run to catch the train this morning. The Christmas feast they had at the Dunkeld family was fun. They invited their grandma and opened presents on Christmas Day. There was nothing really of note in the presents this year. Though Harry did send his friends personalized gifts. Ron got a book on psychology, Daphne got a book on healing magic. For Hermione, he sent her an enchanted necklace that would throw up a Protega should she be caught off guard. Neville got a sword that doubled as a magical focus, amplifying his spells. Tracy got a book on magical creatures since she wanted to be a magi zoologist. Susan got an enchanted pair of gloves that would alarm the wearer if they were about to touch something cursed. Luna got a magical loom because she wanted to make her own clothes, and Astoria got a Nimbus 2001 broom since she had always wanted to ride a broom but couldn't with her blood curse getting in the way. Now that the curse is suppressed, she can do all the things a normal kid can do without running the risk of her magic slowly killing her. As Harry and Leia wished their parents goodbye and ran through the barrier to Platform 9, they both started looking for their friends. Harry found his friends first. They had agreed to meet in the expanded cabin at the front of the train. School was starting back up and Harry and Hermione were studying their last-minute notes. The examiner for the Owls should be at Hogwarts by tomorrow morning. Meaning they will take their test no later than tomorrow afternoon. They tore through revision material over and over again, committing everything to memory. Well, Hermione was committing everything to memory. Harry had already memorized everything and was helping his friend. It was the day after the Owl exams. Harry and Hermione passed all with distinction. Even the woolly subject of divination. They were currently relaxing in the common room, doing a soft review of the theory and spell work they would need to pass their newt. Their newts weren't until next week, so they didn't have to cram for them as swiftly as they did for the Owls, which were right after Christmas break. Still, they were having fun going over all the information and preparing each other for their masteries. They were currently debating on thesis that they were going to present for their masteries. Hermione thought it was too soon, but Harry knew that just the ideas Hermione had for thesis would drop the jaws of the examiners. It was the day after taking the newts. Harry and Hermione were exhausted. They were walking around the school just relaxing and enjoying each other's company. They were currently heading to the joint common room. Harry had talked to Dumbledore and actually got approval for a joint common room that held a Magi Vision TV. Multiple games, such as chess, exploding snap, gobstones, and tabletop Quidditch, an invention Harry made based on foosball that allows wizards to control miniature broom riders for each position. Tonight was the season finale of Wands and Hearts. Harry wanted to watch it as he had recorded the entire season already on his alchemical recording device, and watched it with Hermione preparing for the finale. Hermione was hooked on the Muggle-born actress Jane Smith. Such a plain name, but the woman was a phenomenal actress. She actually played the role of the Minister of Magic. The one who's trying to work with the Witch Coven to help them find their place in the modern world. It's no surprise a Muggle-born wrote Wands and Hearts. Hermione and Harry loved the story even though they usually weren't fans of television. They weren't the only ones gathered for the Wands and Hearts finale. Most of every house was packed into the common room. Luckily, the Magi Vision was big enough to be a movie screen, so everyone could still see the screen despite how packed the joint common room was. As the show started, everyone quieted down so they could hear the Magi Vision TV. It was a good day. Tomorrow they would get the results of their newts that would be the start of their independent study plan. 2 weeks later, Harry was relaxing in the room of requirement going over the information from Potter Inc. Not much has changed so far. No new breakthroughs to speak of, no new inventions to shock the world. Harry was honestly a little disappointed. So far there hadn't been a single month Potter Inc. didn't do something revolutionary. He should have expected research to slow down, but he didn't. He filed away the reports on Potter Inc. and started focusing on his masteries. Harry was currently taking a mastery for every core class, as well as arithmancy and ancient runes. While he had already created a rune schema and new arithmetic functions based on Muggle calculus, he didn't turn them in yet. Breezing through Hogwarts. It's been done before. Breezing through your masteries. That would do nothing good for him. The reason for masteries isn't just to publish your thesis and be acknowledged as a master. It's also a chance to learn from the masters. Things that aren't written down. Things you won't find on your own. Harry planned to take every opportunity gifted to him by his mastery. He would publish his theses when he had extracted every bit of knowledge from his masters that he could. Hermione had finalized her masteries and was taking a master's in potions, arithmancy, and ancient runes. Harry couldn't convince her to load up on every mastery available to her. It was unfortunate, but she didn't see her brilliance the same way Harry did. She thought she was just smarter than average. Harry knew she was a genius. She will get bored with just 3 masteries. Harry will be sure to say, "I told you so." When she does. It was the end of the year. And nothing had happened this year. Harry was partially disappointed. His first year was far more adventurous. Then again, killing the Dark Lord and all his followers would have the effect of forcing the magical world to sleep for a while. Until Harry got bored and woke it up. After all, 3rd year is when his biggest plan will take place. Revitalizing the magical world. His people had long compiled a list of the people who would stand in the way of progress. They knew not what Harry would do with it. And he obliterated them after the task was completed. No one could know that Harry had plans to destroy the magical world and recreate it in his image. Over 45 people were going to die. It would have been more, but with Voldemort's death took a lot of people off that list. The biggest target of assassination Harry had was the Minister of Magic, Fudge. Still, that wasn't until after the summer. Harry needed to be at Hogwarts monitored so no one suspected him. As he left the room of requirement for the last time this year, he headed off to find his friends. They were waiting for him at the leaving feast. He arrived just in time to see Hermione stand up to start looking for him. He waved her down so he wouldn't lose her in the castle. "Harry, where have you been?" Hermione asked, more than a little annoyed. "Oh, you know. I was just in my lab." Harry answered flippantly. "One day you will tell me where you disappear to," Hermione said with an exasperated tone. They both sat down and started to eat. Yesterday McGonagall made an announcement. Due to increased separate house unity brought on by the multi-house common room, students were allowed to sit at whichever table they liked, and as long as no fights broke out, this would continue on to the next year with the sole exception of the welcoming feast. So, Harry, Hermione, Neville, Susan, Hannah, Ron, Tracy, Daphne, Luna, and Astoria were taking up the entire end of the Ravenclaw table. Not that it really mattered much, since the majority of the houses were so intermixed there was no real way to divide houses by tables anymore. Harry was excited to see the unity in between houses growing. After all, the wizarding world will need unity when his plans come to fruition. It was a week into summer and Harry was elated. Today was the day. The day that all his plans hinged on. Today was the day that he would be taking the magical spaceship for a flight to Venus. Venus is tentatively the center for most of his plans. Tentatively being the operative word, as he hasn't figured out how to bypass the extreme heat and pressure of the surface to carve the ritual circle for the mass terraforming ritual. This flight is not just a joyride. They will be dropping magic-made probes to get an accurate read on the temperature and pressure of Venus's surface. Should it being within known tolerable limits of any magical material, then they will move ahead with Venus as the focus. Should the surface be beyond tolerable limits of any magical material, then they will move on to exoplanets, planets existing outside of our solar system. Harry was prepared for either eventuality. In fact, Part of him was hoping Venus was too extreme. After all, in his heart Harry was an inventor. He would rather be forced to create a new escape route for the Magicals than just use portkeys, which could handle the distance easily. Still, he wasn't stupid enough to give up a major advantage just because he wanted to create something new. If it came down to it, he would create a new method of instantaneous travel when he created the second wizarding colony. That one was definitely going to be an exoplanet. With Muggles being so focused on Mars, it wasn't best to make a colony on it. Not that Harry was worried about appeasing the Muggles. Just that he needed time to establish his world without the oppressive feeling of having to always worry about the Muggle finding out. Give his colony 20 years and the Muggles won't be a threat ever again. Harry arrived at the launch point. It was an out-of-the-way area bought from muggers and then hidden under Muggle confusion charms. These were the same charms that hid Diagon Alley from any Muggles, blocking even their recording devices. Harry was excited. This was the start of his dream for Elysium. No matter today's results, this is the first step. Harry had already had a crew trained to work as an exploratory crew. Most of them had dreams of being astronauts as kids before learning about magic. Now they get to live their dreams in the magical world. Harry was excited for the trip, but he was not going alone. No, the starship that they had created could fit 4 extra people besides the crew, and since the elder Dunkles and Leia had not wanted to come, Sirius, Remus, and Hermione were going to be joining the expedition. The starship was gleaming silver. It had 3 curving engine nacelles arching gracefully around a central fuselage. Its hull is smooth and reflective, with soft blue illumination tracing its contours. The design emphasizes elegance over practicality. The ship has dual both in the front and back. Behind the ship, space expands while in front of the ship it contracts. That is why 1 nacelle is in the front while 2 are in the back, as it's far easier to create and control a black hole, while it's far harder to create and control a white hole. This leads to achieving relativistic speeds without breaking Einstein's theory of relativity. Not that Harry put much thought into that anyways, wizards had already created enough exceptions to that theory anyways. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.